Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So we are at the end of our Fast and Furious journey, and that is, of course, that means it's time for us to rank all 11 of the Fast and Furious movies from worst to best. So let's get started. Coming up at number 11, I have Too Fast, Too Furious. I think that this movie is really, I feel like from the first one to this one, it was such a decrease because I actually liked the first one more than I thought I would. But then going from that movie to this movie where it turns up the goofiness, it focuses more on the jokes and the more non-logical side of the franchise before they start going there. So I think that there was something about Too Fast, Too Furious that was too far too soon. Which, like, when you got to around Fast 5, Fast 6-ish, or Furious 6 actually, it was already at that point where you could do the goofy stuff. So I think that there's something about Too Fast, Too Furious that doesn't really work for me, and I think it's the goofiness of it. Because I think that this movie, like, Paul Walker's really good as Brian O'Connor, we all know that, and we get introduced to Roman. I think that there is something about Roman in this movie that is way more goofy in this movie than he is in the later ones. Because in the later ones, he's playing off like Dom and Letty and Tej and all those guys. But when you team him up with Paul Walker, especially with that tonal shift that this movie takes, it kind of makes it like less watchable to me, because like that is not what those Fast and Furious movies were originally. So it kind of disappointed me in that way. So that's why Too Fast, Too Furious came in dead last for me. At number 10, we have Tokyo Drift. This was at the point where 10 and some of the others later in this list, there is something about the first half of most of these Fast and Furious movies that is like, oh, okay, I'm actually really liking this, but then there's something in the middle of it that makes me check out just a little bit, and my mind kind of loses it and goes to do other things. But I do really like the street racing side of this. I actually don't mind that Dom and Brian are in this, even though that looking back, you do wish that we got like a tiebreaker of a third movie, because it's like Dom in first movie, cameo in this movie, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But Brian, first, second, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and that's it. So around the time that, I want to say, it might have been Fast. No, it was Fast 7. They were in equal amounts of the movie. But if you don't count number 3, it took until Fate of the Furious for Dom to be in the same amount of movies as Paul Walker, Brian O'Connor. And I think that there is something about Tokyo Drift that kind of loses it, because we don't have any of our pre-established characters that we've already had in this series. That's like, okay, well, what else do we do? Because I don't know why they did this, like, because I don't think that they turned it into like, before they made Furious 7, I don't think that they were planning on connecting this. Like, it just seems like something that they were like, oh yeah, let's make another car racing movie, but let's just label it under Fast and Furious, because we made 2 of those and they were successful, so let's just label it under that. But I do like Brian T in this movie. I really like the main characters in this movie. I don't mind the high school kind of story in this movie as much as some other people. I do like the street racing side of this movie more the teenager and the jacuzzi type of storyline. I like more the racing side of this, and I really like the car races. I think that they were better than the second one. I thought, but Tokyo Drift I really like. I think it's good. I think it kind of loses me like towards the middle, but I think it's really good. The character was very relatable and stuff like that. So I really liked it. At number 9, I have The Fast and Furious, the original Fast and Furious. I really liked this movie more than I thought I would. I think that this movie really works. It's kind of crazy how this movie, like, except for staying in their lane, car racing movies, they've turned it into a action movie, which I prefer the action side than the racing side. But it's crazy looking back at it and going like, Fast and Furious 1, 2, and 3 are very, and even 4, are very street race based movies. And like, they're all about street racing and even like getting hired by some people to race and all that. And then 5 and up, it just got into action, which I prefer the action, but I think that there's something about the cultural shift in the Fast and Furious movies from the first one to where they are now, where they're big budgets and they're more action-based movies and stuff. I think that there is a lot to like in the original Fast and Furious. I think that Brian is really good. Like, every Fast and Furious movie has to have hot chicks in it. And I really like Dom in this movie. It does feel strange because it does feel, especially characters like Letty, it does kind of feel like that she's a different character in the first movie than she is in the rest of them. But I think that there is something about her that is very clear cut. Like, that's what we, how do I put it? Like, there's something about her in this movie that's very mean, as opposed to the rest of the franchise, where, like, yeah, she has that edge to her, but she is also, seems very friendly. And I think that's also part of the whole memory wipe and plot they do in 4, which we'll get to. But no, I really like the first Fast and Furious. I think it's a whale of a time. At number 8, we have Furious 6. I actually really liked Furious 6. I thought that the meta-ness of them going up against an evil version of themselves was very, very cool. It was a bit of a, I mean, you do kind of roll your eyes where, like, Letty got amnesia and, like, everyone's fine with that, but when they do it in Spider-Man 3, it's not okay. So it's one of those things where, like, the melodrama of the amnesia bothered me more in Furious 6 than it did in Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man 3, because I grew up with it, I was kind of used to the amnesia thing. But then when I heard the complaints of Spider-Man 3 going like, why the hell did Harry get amnesia? And I saw Furious 6 for the first time, I was like, dude, why did you have to give her amnesia? And, like, if you want to try and, like, bring her back, that's fine, but do a way that's not amnesia, because we saw the funeral in 4. We saw, we don't necessarily want to see Dom trying to convince Letty come back, because, like, but then we have the whole thing in 7, and we'll get to 7 way later, but I think that there is something about Furious 6 that is, like, the actions were really cool. I mean, yeah, it's a little silly that Dom jumps over across the crossing to get Letty midair and stuff, like, but at this point, after Fast 5, I kind of expected that, to be honest. So it was kind of one of those things where I was like, okay, right, I can't expect that. It was just kind of one of those things where, like, I actually really liked a lot of stuff in Furious 6. Number 7 is Fast and Furious, the 4th one. I actually really liked this movie. I think there were some very, very cool things about going through the tunnels and stuff, and I think that, like, the tunnels I thought was a very, very cool way to do a race. And when you look at the grand spectrum, it's still building the Dom and Brian relationship, because we only really see Dom and Brian in the first movie together. We only see Brian and Roman in the second movie. We only see Dom for a cameo in the third movie. So other than that little cameo in third, we haven't seen him since the first movie. So we still need to establish Dom as a character. So it's like, okay, who is Dom? What's his deal? What's his relationship to Brian? We need to see his relationship with Mia a bit more. We need to see his relationship with Letty more. I mean, it is kind of strange that they kind of turn the Letty thing into the death thing in this movie, especially since we haven't seen the whole gang since the first movie. That was a bit strange to me. The problem is that, like, these movies have so many things going on in them that you're like, what is going on? But, like, I can easily turn my brain off and just enjoy them as, like, a dumb action movie, and that's basically what they are to me at this point. And I think that Fast and Furious really works when it's the Dom and Brian relationship and you're still establishing the characters. And even though I do like the tunnels, I can see how it's a bit of a strange thing with that. But yeah, no, I do like Fast and Furious. I think it's a underrated one in the franchise. Number 6, we have Fast X. I actually really like Fast X. I think the thing about this movie is that it's not only trying to end the Fast and Furious journey that we've been having since 2000, which is crazy to me, but also it makes me upset that we're probably not going to see the second part, because we got news that they were going to go back to the street racing, which, that's the thing too, how are you going to go back to the street racing after having Fast X, where, like, ever since Fast 5 has been your big action franchise, and now you want to go back to the car culture-ness of it all. I didn't mind the car racing, but I think that it's definitely a bit of a jump from what we expect from these movies nowadays. So I think that's the thing. And then it also, like, the other good thing about Fast X is also that it also has callbacks to every version of Fast and Furious. So whether if you're a fan of the original Fast and Furious and Tokyo Drift and that sort of stuff, you have that whole racing bit where Dom is going up against the villain in Dante, Jason Momoa, and going up against the I think it's the sister of Chris Hemsworth's wife from the police from the 5th and 6th movie and even 8th movie. So I think that's a really, really cool scene that's acknowledging the past. And then there's also, like, your typical action stuff where, like, I think that the whole the bit in Rome was so cool, and I loved that action scene of them stopping the bomb and everything. And it felt like a really, really cool action scene, and how, like, the whole thing is, like, it feels like basically Avengers Infinity War to Fast and Furious, where, like, you have multiple different storylines, where you have the storyline with Dom, and then you have the plot with Tej, Roman, and all those guys going on there. Then you have Mia and baby Brian back at the house, and then that swaps from which is weird because Mia doesn't get a lot to do in this movie. I wish that Mia was part of the action. But also, like, in Fast 5, she didn't really have a lot to do. So there are times when I feel like that Mia needs to get in on the action in this last movie, if they make it. But also, that switches from Mia to Jacob and Lil Brian, which is such a cool scene with that. But yeah, no, I think because Fast X also does a lot of things within it that are either callbacks to the previous movies and how far we've come, and how to wrap up So, and like, I'm really excited to see where they go for the second part. I don't know if they're going to make the second part anymore, but I think that Fast X really works, and I think that this is a return to form to 5, 6, and 7, and that little trilogy of movies, and it really feels like that. Because these movies actually really work with the heist type stuff, and this works again with the heist, and it feels very 5, 6, and 7 in that range. So I actually really like Fast X, and I really like how very curious to see where they go with the next chapter in the series. Number 5 is Fate of the Furious. I actually surprisingly had a lot of fun with this movie. There are some bits in it that I'm like, oh my god, what a twist. Like, I didn't see that whole thing of, what's her name? Is it Ursula, Elsa, or whatever, Hemsworth's, wife, who she plays. But, her getting killed, I did not see that coming. And I did not realize that they had a baby. So that was a whole, like, what in the world? And you can really feel the feud between The Rock and Vin Diesel, how, like, The Rock was like, nah, this is the way we should do it, and then Vin was like, nah, sorry, I need to shoot my scenes, like, without you, and stuff like that. You really do feel that. And, the only problem, where it started to lose me was the end battle, because the end battle went for too freaking long. Like, at least with Fast 6, the airport battle was fun, because, like, it was actually cool seeing the planes take off and them all sniping around the truck and the plane and having an action scene within the plane and stuff. But like the bloody submarine coming out of the water, like bloody Gal Gadot does in Fast X, you're like, what in the world? Like, where is this going? And like, there's something about that fight scene that just went way too long for me, and I'm like, what is going on? But I think that there's some really good stuff in Fast X. I do like the whole thing of Dom going against the family and then him coming back around and stuff. I think that there is a big Paul Walker-shaped hole in the movie, though. And I'm not gonna lie that this is the movie that that kind of stopped a lot of people going to Fast and Furious movies, because there are some people that are like, oh, I stopped going to Fast and Furious movies after Furious 7 because Paul Walker was such a key to that franchise. And I agree, I love Brian. I think that Brian and Dom are one of the best movie duos ever, like up there with like Woody and Buzz and stuff. So I think that Fate of the Furious didn't lack that, but I think it knocked out in terms of the fun category, and seeing like the ridiculousness more was just crazy and over the top, and I actually really, really liked that. Number 4 for me is Fast 5. Now, originally I had Fast 5 a little bit more below, but I recently rewatched it again. I'm like, man, this is a great action movie. This is one of those movies that like kind of went like, okay, let's kind of change the direction of the series. Like, let's pick up with that cliffhanger at the end of 4. Let's open that up in this movie and actually see what the conclusion to that is. And this was a year before Avengers. This was 2011 this movie came out. So technically Fast and Furious did the whole like assembling a team thing first. When Brian, Dom and Mira are talking, they're going like, we need a team. And then you see like Gal Gadot on the motorcycle coming in, and then you see Han, and you see Tej and Roman and all those guys, and then 2 random guys. I'm like, who the hell are you people? You see all those people from the other films, and you're like, oh my god, this actually did work. Like, I mean, even though it makes more sense in the MCU and DC, EU or U, than it does with Fast and Furious, but Fast and Furious pull it off in a way that you're like, this actually works. So I actually really, really like that. And also the action scenes, and this is the most quotable out of Fast and Furious movies for me. Like, this is one of those movies that me and my brother quote while watching the movie. So like, we're quoting the whole bit where Dom's gone like, "We are a long way from home. This is Brazil." Like, me and my brother quote that constantly to each other. We think it's fucking hilarious and such a quotable movie. And I really like the I didn't really like Vince. I thought Vince was a douche character, and I kind of forgot that he wasn't the first one. So when he came back for 5, I was like, what? That's some freaking obscure bloody thing. And then, like, you don't see him ever again because they kill him off in this one. And then, but yet they don't bring back the other people from the gang in the first one. So you're like, well, what's the point? But no, I think Fast 5 is one of the best, is a good action movie. And, like, I don't hold into the best of action movies like I do with, like, the MCU or even some of the DCEU and the James Gunn Superman and that type of stuff. But this movie is definitely very, very good when it comes to an action movie. Number 3 is, unfortunately, it's F9. I had lots of fun watching F9. I think F9 is one of those movies that, when you watch it, you're like, why is John Cena related to Vin Diesel when they don't even look alike? Like, why does, like, how is Han back? How, like, why does Ramsey not know how to drive? So she needs to know how to drive and things like that. You're like, what is going on? Oh my god. But when you watch the movie, you're like, yeah, sure, these storylines don't make any bloody sense. But, like, I'm having fun. Like, I think it's gone to a point where, like, after Fast 8, I knew that F9 was going to be worse than those. But I'm watching it, I'm like, I'm having more fun watching this movie than some of the other movies. But not that it's a good movie. I totally agree with everyone that it's a bad movie, but I have lots of fun watching it. And I actually really, really like that about it. So I think that's a very, very cool thing in this movie, that it's just a turn your brain off movie. And I really, really like that. Now, number 2 is Hobbs and Shaw. I actually really, really like Hobbs and Shaw. I saw this in the theater. I really, really liked it in the theater, and I did not see any of the Fast and Furious movies at all. I've been told by my friends to go see it. My brother was big into it at the time, and he did not like this movie at all. I love the relationship between The Rock and Jason Statham, and from Vanessa Kirby in there, and I like the over-the-top action scenes. Like, yeah, sure, there are some over-the-top bits, like when The Rock is pulling the helicopter and hang on to a car and that sort of stuff. Like, that's ridiculous, but you can't expect that from a Fast movie, especially when you pair up 2 of the biggest action stars at that point with Jason Statham and The Rock. That is, like, action gold right there. I think that is easily one of the best, like, one of the more fun action movies. Fun in a way that is not as good as, like, the MCU, right? Like, this is easily, like, such a good action movie, and a good comedy. Like, this has some really, really good comedy between the banter between Jason Statham and The Rock, and then also you have Kevin Hart with a cameo in it and stuff, like, and the Kevin Hart scene is fun, so I actually really, really like that. I really, really like this movie, and I really like seeing, like, the backstory of Jason Statham and Vanessa Kirby's character, how they were brothers and they used to do a lot of stuff together, but then they kind of went their separate ways. I thought that was fun. I actually really, really liked that about Hobbs and Shaw. I think Hobbs and Shaw was really, really good. Now, number 1, of course, is Furious 7. I love Furious 7. It is my favourite Fast and Furious movie. It is easily one of those ones where, like, yes, it's ridiculous. Like, when you have, like, the whole thing of the planes the cars going onto a plane and then jumping off onto a road that's hidden and stuff like that. You're like, what? But, like, it's one of those things where you're like, I need to kind of turn my brain off for this and just have fun. because I think it's one of those things where like it's actually really, really fun when you watch it. So I really like Furious 7. I think Furious 7 is one of the ones where like it would have been a good ending to the Fast and Furious franchise, because you're sending off both Brian and Dom in their own directions, and then basically you're dividing them, and then you could just end it there where like the Dom and the family could probably go on some other journeys, and then Brian is living a separate life with Mia, and then occasionally Mia goes to see Brian and stuff. But I think that this would have been a great ending to the Fast and Furious franchise. If they did have some of the installments afterwards, except for maybe Hobbs and Shaw, I would have been happy with Fast and Furious. But because you have, like, even though that some of my favourites are the ones that came out after, I still kind of look at it as, like, your main storyline is closed with Furious 7. And then all we need to do is not continue that at all. But yeah, so guys, that is my ranking of all the Fast and Furious movies. Please hit the like button down below if you haven't already. Subscribe also to the little bell icon to get notified of future videos that I do. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye.
Hey there. Subscribe to my channel. And also press this bell icon.